आरती का शोभा जहाँ नबी तत्वने जगमन लोभा जहाँ आगे जाके बजाइए, आगे चले जाइए। जहाँ नबी तत्वने जगमन लोभा जहाँ ले लो दक्षिण निताई चांद वामी गदाधर दक्षिण निताई चांद वामी गदाधर निकटे अद्वैताश्विनी वास छत्रधार निकटे निकटे अद्वैताश्विनी वास छत्रधार निकटे बसियाचे गोरा चांद रत्न सिंहासने गोरा चांद रत्न सिंहासने वसे आरती करना ब्रह्मा आदि देवगाने आरती करना ब्रह्मा आदि देवगाने आरती नारा ओ हरि आदि कोरी चामर डुलाया नारा कोरी चामर डुलाय
Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Kose Adigaya Sanjaya Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Kose Adigaya Sanjaya Shankha baje, ghanta baje, baje kartala. Shankha baje, ghanta baje, baje kartala. Shankha Madhura Mirtanga Baje Paramar Sala Madhura Mirtanga Baje Paramar Sala Madhura Vivol Shankha baje, ghanta baje, madhur madhur, madhur baje, shankha baje. Shankha baje, ghanta baje, madhur madhur, madhur baje, shankha madhur 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 baje madhur 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 baje Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Baho Koti Chandrajini Vadana Ujjwala Baho Koti Chandrajini Vadana Ujjwala Gaila dishe bana mala Kare jala mala Gaila dishe bana mala Kare jala mala Shiva Sukha Narada Preme Gada Gada Shiva Sukha Narada Preme Gada Gada Shiva Bhakti Vinoda Date Gaurara Sampada Bhakti Vinoda Date Gaurara Sampada Gaurangaya Rati Shobha Jagadana Manalobha Gaurang Gaurangaya Rati Shobha Jagadana Manalobha Jagadana Manalobha Jagadana Manalobha Jai Gauranita 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 Jai 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 Gauranita Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi गौर भक्त वृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद जय हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा। सभी कभी गाइए भगवान का नाम। सवाई बोलून हरे राम हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा। हरे कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 राम हरे कृष्णा हरे Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Samay bolun Hare Krishna Samay bolun Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. On behalf of ISKCON, Juhu, Mumbai, we welcome His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj by chanting the holy names Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We also welcome all the participants who are joining on various online platforms for this program. In India, January 26 reminds everyone about the Republic Day. Everyone knows the Republic Day and it's a public holiday. For devotees at Juhu, in addition to being a Republic Day, it is also a day of opportunity to associate with His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj for a decade now. In the year 2010, His Grace Daru Krishna Prabhu, a disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, a congregation of ISKCON Juhu, Mumbai, he invited His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj to give a special lecture in Juhu, and His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj obliged. And since then, every year on 26th January, we have the wonderful association of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. And this year, Maharaj is separated by distance, but still we approached Maharaj to continue this opportunity of association on 26th Jan, and Maharaj very happily accepted the invitation, and we are very, very thankful to Maharaj for that. And this is the 12th edition. This is a 12th edition of a special lecture on 26th January. In Kathopanishad, there is an analogy of journey in a chariot. So Kathopanishad says, it compares the chariot journey to the journey of life. The chariot is compared to the body. The horses are compared to the senses, five horses. The reins are compared to the mind, and the driver is compared to the intelligence, and the occupant, the passenger, is the spirit soul. And this is life journey. And this journey, Upanishad says that, should be directed in the right path towards the right destination. So in life's journey, there are so many ups and downs. Sometimes in the journey, we find speed breakers, potholes, diversions, but then we can't discontinue the journey, and we have to go ahead with the journey. And in our life's journey, also there are so many ups and downs, but in the year 2020, we had the untoward intervention of the disturbance of coronavirus, corona pandemic. In the middle of corona pandemic, everyone is facing so many challenges, so many challenges. Even in Krishna consciousness, we have so many difficulties. So we need some special guidance to not only overcome this pandemic season, but also take forward some lessons in our life's journey of Krishna consciousness. So we need a transcendental travel guide. Our travel, our journey in life, it needs a transcendental travel guide. And we have a wonderful expert guide with us who started his journey from the suburbs of Chicago, going through Himalayan caves and coming to cities like Bombay, and finally taking shelter at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. And he had encounters with austerities, challenges, and difficulties. And after the journey home, our transcendental travel guide has also made the journey within. So he's the expert traveler with making successful journeys. And we are very happy to introduce this transcendental travel guide, none other than His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. Radhanath Swami Maharaj is authored these two books, Journey Home and The Journey Within, which are bestsellers in all over the world. And a Naishtika Brahmachari, sannyasi, motivational speaker, melodious singer, caring leader, and a humble saint. A member of ISKCON India Bureau and also a governing body commissioner. In specific, is the governing body GBC Zonal Secretary for ISKCON Juhu. So we are very, very fortunate to have Maharaj with us on this occasion. So we need expert guidance from Maharaj, from the lessons from Corona, and it will be travel tips, very, very helpful in our life's journey of Krishna consciousness. And with that, we wish everyone a very happy journey in Krishna consciousness with guidance from His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. With that, I request His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj to speak on the topic, Lessons from Corona. His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj.
Om Mokyantimidandasya Gyananjana Chalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Judha Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatham Sahagana Raghunathan Bitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanbitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbhishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyate Shatharine. I am sincerely grateful to be with all of you today. It is truly a blessing to me that Sri Sri Radhanath Bihari, through the kind and gracious invitation of Mukunda Madhava Prabhu, has allowed me to be among all of you. My sincere gratitude to His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj, His Holiness Sridhar Swami Maharaj, to Bhima Prabhu and Devaki Nandan Prabhu and Haridas Prabhu and all the great souls, to each and every one of you for being so very dear to Srila Prabhupada, for helping to assist him in this project of Sri Sri Radhanath Bihari's community, which truly is so very dear to Srila Prabhupada. I was asked to speak about coronavirus, and I'm not much of a medical person, but I will share some realizations. First of all, my heart's feelings, condolences, sympathies to each and every one of you, because so many have either suffered from this virus or who have had relatives who have suffered. Some have lost loved ones. And it is my prayer and the prayer of a Vaishnav to have a truly soft heart that is concerned for the well-being of everyone. In several places, Srila Prabhupada spoke that the comprehensive conclusion of all the Vedas is Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu. To come to this state of consciousness where we wish happiness to all living beings. The Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, especially these Vedic literatures, are giving us the opportunity to understand true happiness. We have a physical body, we have an emotional mind, but our true self, the eternal soul, is Anandamayo Vyashat. It's by nature filled with happiness. And life in all forms is a search for this happiness, a search for a lost love. Krishna's love upon all of us is the highest reality. It is beyond time, beyond death, and beyond all the reversals and changes of this material creation. It's something that is all around us, within us, and in truth, we're never separated from Krishna's love. But due to material influences, Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. Due to this external energy of Maya, we forget. We forget who we are as an eternal spirit soul, and we forget Krishna, who is within our heart. We forget Krishna's love for each of us, which is the pleasure that everyone is ultimately seeking. Oma pavitra pavitro va sarvavastam gatopi va yasmarit pundarikaksham sabhayabhyantara suchi. This is a medicine, a formula, which teaches us how to revive our healthy, spiritual, happy state. To remember Krishna. The cause of all of our sufferings is essentially because we have forgotten Krishna. We have forgotten our relationship with Krishna. And the remedy is to remember Krishna. Sometimes our beloved Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, would tell us that in Krishna consciousness, the goal and the process to the goal are the same. The goal is to always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. And the process of reaching that state is to remember Krishna. Yato yato nishchalati manas chanchalamashtaram. The nature of the mind, it's always wandering. Due to our samskaras, due to all of the conditionings and habits that we have from our previous decisions in life, in this life and previous lives, we are very much habituated to try to find happiness in the physical and emotional things of this world. Through our satisfaction of senses and through the satisfaction of the mind. But all of these things, the great poet Govinda Das declared, Kamala Dala Jala Jivana Talamala. They're all coming and going. Like a drop of water on a lotus leaf. It looks so nice when it's sitting there on the lotus leaf. It's reflecting the sun. It looks like a precious pearl. But we know that at any moment, it will slip away. And similarly, all the things that attract us in this world and all the things we're trying to cling to for happiness, they will all slip away. inevitably. The nature of time, which is Krishna's personal energy in this creation, is time never allows anything to be this, to remain the same. Everything's changing. But time cannot touch spiritual reality. The eternal soul is Mamaivam So Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are part of Krishna. Jivera Swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas. We are eternally loving servants of Krishna. Nityasiddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunoi. Love for Krishna is within our hearts. Nothing could change that. The path of bhakti is to apply this principle of remembering Krishna in all various situations of life. This particular verse that I recited, Om Pavitra Pavitrova, Srila Prabhupada had us recite this at the times of initiations, marriage, vows, because it really does encapsulate our lives' purpose. Whether we are pure or impure, if we remember Pavitra, Krishna, who is supremely pure, we become purified. Even having passed through all different situations, one who remembers Krishna is purified within and without. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is Parama Karuna. He is supremely compassionate, supremely merciful. Aham bija pradapita. He's our father and mother forever. In this world, we have experience of the unconditional, selfless love and care of a good mother and father. Their world so much revolves around the happiness of their children. A loving mother and father is willing to die for their child. Such care. And even as the child grows older, it's not that that love diminishes. It's not that the infant child is loved by the mother, but when the child grows up, the love is any less. That's the nature of a loving mother. Shri Shri Radha Rasbihari, Radha Gopinath. They are the source of all love. Whatever love a parent could have for a child in this world is part and parcel of Krishna and Sri Radha's love for us. To whatever extent a parent cares for their child, it's an infinitesimal fragment of a part of how Krishna cares about us. Radha, Srimati Radharani, and Lord Sri Krishna, our eternal supreme mother, father, and object of love and beloved. They appear in this age of Kali as Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. The Lord is Parama Karuna. He came to this world at a time of the greatest desperation because he loves us, because he cares about us more than anybody. In fact, whatever care anyone has for us is either a direct or indirect expression of God's care for us. A beloved devotee who was so dear to and empowered by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu shared with us Lord Chaitanya's own message. Bhaktivinoda Thakur. In a beautiful bhajan he gave to us, which is to be sung in the morning. Jeev jago, Goda Chandra Bole, Kota Nidra Jayo Maya Pisa Chira Kole. This prayer is especially to be recited, sung, meditated upon in the morning. Most of us, we sing it to the morning raga. Jeev jago, Goda Chandra Bole, Kota Nidra Jayo Maya Pisachira Kole. Wake up, sleeping souls. Some of us, we have an alarm clock that wakes us in the morning. Now there's all sorts of technological alternatives to alarm clocks. Some of us are woken up by a loved one or a parent or a child in the morning. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at that time is teaching us, wake up, sleeping soul. When we're in sleep, sometimes we just are in complete forgetfulness of everything. Sometimes our state of consciousness is we forget we even exist. And other times we're dreaming, sometimes beautiful, sweet dreams we wish would never end, and sometimes terrible dreams we wish we never had. But when we wake up, we understand who we are. And similarly, in the deep sleep under the covering of Maya, we are forgetful of our true nature. We're forgetfulness of the happiness that is meant to be shared with all living beings. Our love for Krishna and Krishna's love for us. When Lord Chaitanya says, wake up, sleeping souls, he's asking us to wake up to that eternal reality, to what we are all seeking. Krishna. Srila Prabhupada was very merciful in every way. And one aspect is he would explain many times, many ways, how when we speak of Krishna, we speak of God. The one God who's the source of everything. The one God who's the goal of every religion. The one God who awakening love for is the purpose of all true spiritual paths. But Srila Prabhupada gave us something even more. An awareness of God as Krishna, all attractive. The supreme source and the supreme complete whole of all beauty, all knowledge, all fame, all strength, all wealth, all renunciation. Krishna is all attractive. Srila Rupa Goswami tells, If you're attached to any of the ever-changing things of this world that are so dear to us, I warn you, do not go to Keshi Ghat in Vrindavan on the bank of Yamuna River, because there you will see Govinda, who is the resplendent source of all beauty, who is all attractive, who has the magnetic force to eternally and ever increasingly attract the love of every soul that is awakened. When Krishna plays his flute, as he played his flute for each gopi, and each gopi heard Krishna personally calling her in the sound of his flute. As we awaken, we understand Krishna's playing his flute to attract all of us back to the spiritual world. And when by the mercy of the great acharyas like Srila Prabhupada, the six Goswamis, our acharyas, when they invite Krishna to come in the form of the deity in the temple, Krishna descends. Shri Radha Rasbihari. Rasbihari, Krishna, who is enjoying the sweetest loving relationships, rasas, with gopis and gopas in the spiritual world, has come to Juhu. Gopinath has come to Chopati. Govinda has come to New York. Gokulananda has come to London. The Lord has descended by Prabhupada's calling into all of these places. And Sri Radharani's hand is extended to bless each and every soul in this world. Or she's offering, she's eager to offer all of us to her beloved Krishna. And Krishna's playing his flute because of forgetfulness. We may not be able to hear it with our ears. But on the altar and in our hearts, he's forever calling us back to him. That is Krishna's unconditional love. Bhakti Vinod Thakur continues in this beautiful morning song. Enechi asadi maya nashi baro lagi hari nama mahamantra lao tumi magi. I have the medicine that will bring you again to your original natural good health. If we analyze in a very simple way, why does anyone want good health? Because good health makes us happy. At least we think like that. It facilitates the idea of happiness. And disease facilitates the idea of suffering. And ultimately, everything in life is categorized as positive or negative according to how it facilitates either happiness or suffering. We want what makes us happy. People in the mode of ignorance, they find happiness in controlling others, intoxications, excessive sleepiness, cruelty to others, to show our own power over them. People in the mode of passion, Rajaguna, they are searching for happiness by fame, by wealth, by acquisition of material possessions and property, by eating foods, by sexual pleasures, by all sorts of other entertainment. And people in the mode of goodness, they look for happiness in making themselves actually happy and purified. They seek happiness in helping others, philanthropy, altruism, kindness, raising a family according to good values, exemplifying good values. And spiritual happiness is in awakening our Satchit Ananda, eternal, knowledgeable, blissful nature. Krishna consciousness, God consciousness. So Lord Chaitanya, when he is giving us this aushadhi, this medicine, it is the ultimate cure. We have our Bhaktivedanta hospital. I am so grateful to everyone who's connected there. They have really given their lives to heal the body, the mind, and the soul. Because we do care about people's physical condition. Because we don't want people to suffer. We want them to be happy. But even in our concern for people's physical and emotional condition, it's always connected to our concern for their spiritual well-being. And that's what makes Krishna consciousness. That's what makes bhakti. It's not that we disregard and we become callous to people's physical and emotional condition only for their spiritual. Because people's physical and emotional condition are doorways to the spiritual. After all, this human form of life is very rare. Atato brahma jigyasa, durlabhamanava janmalobhya samsare. Human life is very rare. And we honor and respect and care for the human body. And we honor and respect people's feelings. That's the nature of a Vaishnava. But it's with the purpose. It's never separated from our sincere, prayerful mood of service to awaken people's hearts. So in Bhaktivedanta Hospital, as they're taking care of people with coronavirus or cancer or heart attacks or any other types of diseases, malaria, they're also, Srila Prabhupada's chanting on all the speakers and everyone's getting Krishna's Mahaprasad, and the spiritual care devotees are giving whatever dose is most beneficial to a person. And this is the mood of a preacher. A doctor not only understands what is the right medicine, but he understands the right dose that will be effective. And, sometimes Srila Prabhupada would come down like a hammer, who is Krishna, and surrender to Krishna. And other times, just through his gestures of kindness and respect, he would attract people to the path of bhakti. He would give the dose that was effective. Why? Because he cared. He wasn't just preaching in a self-righteous way. He was preaching as an instrument of Krishna's compassion. when we understand how Radharani and Sri Krishna love every living being, they want everyone to go back to Godhead. What will best work to actually bring that person closer? Enechio sadi maya nashi bodabhi. Harina mahamantra lao tumi magi. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught that the chanting of the holy name is the most powerful, most effective, most accessible medicine in this age of Kali. Because it cures us from the disease of ignorance, of forgetfulness of Krishna. Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Ras Vigraha. Kali Kale Namarupe Krishna Avatar. Golokera Premadana Harinam Sankirtana. That Krishna is not different than his name. He is descended from Goloka Vrindavan in this age of Kali, especially in his name. Sri Radha is with us in her name. And therefore the name of the Lord is supremely pure. Yayatamam prapadyante tamstataiva bhajamyam. According to how we approach the holy name, the Lord will reciprocate and purify us. Medicine really is meant to purify us. And this supreme medicine that Lord Chaitanya has given to everyone, it's the supreme vaccination. It not only cures us of a disease, but it prevents us from being affected by the disease of suffering. At this time, when there is a health crisis in the world, there's an economic crisis in the world. In some places, there are racial or political crises in the world. We have this opportunity to take very seriously, not to be distracted from our real goal of life. Prema Pumartha Mahan. The goal of life is to love Krishna. Sharanagati. Sarvadharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. According to how we surrender to Krishna, according to how we take shelter of Krishna, Krishna will reciprocate and reveal his love for us and reveal our love for him. That's what really matters. For the people of this world who are endlessly and futilely distracted, a devotee feels great concern and compassion for them. And at the same time, as devotees, it's our tendency to be influenced by the association of material energy and to misplace our priorities. We become so caught up with stuff, with things, with experiences, with issues, that we forget the very purpose behind it. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was teaching Rupa Goswami at Prayagraj, he described this mad elephant defense. offending the Lord's devotees. It is only because we are distracted by so many issues and we prioritize so many ideas that are not favorable to Krishna consciousness that we make up offenses to others, aparads. If we're really focused on the goal, yasya prasada bhagavat prasado, yasya prasada nagati kutopi. If we're really focusing on what truly pleases Krishna, what pleases our gurus, what pleases Srila Prabhupada, then even when there's differences, we will resolve them in a favorable way where we have respect because we want to come closer to being a loving servant of Krishna. The ahankar, the false ego, is so powerful, and it could distract us in so many ways. Srila Prabhupada asks us to read his books every day, to study his books. Srila Prabhupada told us, I'm not just writing these books to be distributed, I'm writing these books for the devotees to sincerely read. In the early days of the movement, he established Srimad Bhagavatam class in the morning, Bhagavad Gita class in the evening, to discuss, to read, to study, to discuss this message. And at the time of initiation, many have taken vows to chant at least 16 rounds every day. By doing these things properly and associating devotees, we're making Krishna the priority of our life. And in whatever we do throughout the day, Krishna is the priority of why we're doing it. And how we do it is determined by how we're making Krishna the priority of our life. Bhakti is not just what we do, but how we do it. Bhakti is not just what we do and how we do, but bhakti is why we do it. It is for Krishna's pleasure. Atapum bird vijastreshtas varna shrama vibhaga shashvanushtatasya dharmasya samsiddhiradi toshanam. Our being a mother, our being a father, our being a brahmachari in the ashram, our being a grihastha and having an occupation, of being a sannyasi and renouncing so many things. The purpose of it all is to give pleasure to Krishna. Sravanam, hearing is so very important because without hearing, without being reminded in the association of sincere devotees, we become distracted. I was listening to a recording of Srila Prabhupada. It was in 1966, and he was in the Anand Ashram in upstate New York. And it was very sweet because Srila Prabhupada several times in his lecture referred to Captain Pandey, who happened to be there at the lecture. The person who was the captain of the Jaladuta that took Srila Prabhupada for 38 days from Calcutta all the way to Boston Harbor and then to New York City. And during those 38 days, Srila Prabhupada and the captain became really good friends. And that same captain came the Jaladuta was stopped in New York port for some time, and he came to visit Prabhupada and came to his lecture. And Srila Prabhupada was talking to him in the lecture. Do you remember this? Do you remember? and one of the most instructive things that Srila Prabhupada said in this dialogue with Captain Pandey in this lecture is, do you remember when we were at sea and it was rough seas and stormy seas, and all that's around us in all directions is just water, ocean. And the captain was telling Prabhupada how he always is in the right direction. Not only does he have a compass, but he has navigational books. And these navigational books have been given by people who have made this journey. So between the compass and the navigational science, which is given to us by self-realized souls in the sense that they have made the voyage, that's how we're, whatever storm, whatever confusions appear all around us, we're always going in the right direction. And Srila Prabhupada very humbly, he said, Captain Pandey, you have taught me this. And he was giving the example of this is how the voyage of life needs to be traveled. Because in this ocean of material existence, sometimes it's very sunny, and that could be a distraction. Sometimes it's very stormy, and that could be a distraction. Sometimes there's pandemics. Sometimes there's earthquakes. Sometimes there's war. And sometimes everything's going really nice. Sometimes our wife or our husband doesn't agree with us. There's all different ways that we can be disturbed in this world. But Mahajano Yena Gatasa Panta. This was Srila Prabhupada's conclusion. We must always follow in the footsteps of the great souls. So in Srila Prabhupada's books, Srila Prabhupada has given us the very concise, condensed essence of the teachings and the example of the greatest of the souls of our Vaishnava history. Srila Prabhupada also explained, even if you have the books and you have the compass and you have everything, and you even have the ship that can bring you to the destination, you have to use it. It's not enough just having it. We have to apply it to our life. In a certain way, we have to take shelter of that direction we're given. These are difficult times. But throughout religious history and Vaishnava history, we find how Krishna makes himself especially accessible in desperate times. Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas would often speak from the prayers of Kunti Devi. One of her prayers, Vipadashantuta Shashvatatra Tatra Jagat Guru Bhavato Darshanam Yat Syat Apunar Bhava Darshanam. She's praying to Krishna, let calamities come again and again. Because when such difficulties, when such emergencies come in my life, I have no one else to turn to except you. And when I turn to you, you are there. And with you, I never have to see birth and death. This is a very, very deep prayer, because from the Mahabharata and Srimad Bhagavatam, we understand what happened in Kunti's life. It wasn't just a poetic, theoretical composition. She had suffered so much personally. She had seen the ones that she loved the most in life suffer. She saw her husband die, her eldest son killed. She saw her other children being blasphemed, being massive, terrible propaganda against them, banishment. She saw her own daughter-in-law, Draupadi, disgraced. And now everything was good. Now all the troubles, all the fears, everything was resolved. And for the first time, practically in her entire life, she was in a comfortable, secure situation. Kunti Devi, she understood the power of Maya and the effect of complacency. She prayed for the calamities to continue, so that she would always be conscious of the truth that Krishna is our only shelter. It's not that we should pray like her because we don't have her realization. But we can evaluate what her mood is and apply that to our life. At every moment, we need the shelter of Krishna. Just yesterday morning, I was listening to a recording, and Srila Prabhupada was speaking about Parikshit Maharaj. Now, he's speaking, this was a lecture in the early 1960s. Srila Prabhupada was in Los Angeles, California, which is very much a place where there's always nice weather. And he's speaking to young American boys and girls. It wasn't people in a desperate condition. But he was describing Maharaj Parikshit. He said Parikshit Maharaj knew for sure. He was given assurance of 7 days to live. And Srila Prabhupada is talking to people from wealthy families in their 19s and their 20s. And he's saying, not a single one of us are assured of even 7 minutes to live. And he gave so many examples. You can just go outside and something could happen. There's plane crashes, there's auto crashes, there's slipping, there's criminals. What to speak of inside our own body? So many diseases. Practically a fourth of the population, according to certain medical sciences, will have in their lifetime some sort of cancer. And there's heart disease. And because of all the internet distractive and high level pressures on the human mind, there's so much depression. When people making money and being beautiful and being famous, and being strong, when we make these our goals of life, then most people are very vulnerable to depression because there's always people better than us. In Krishna consciousness, we don't compare ourselves to anyone else. We just try to be the best we could be for Krishna, and we're totally happy. So Srila Prabhupada was explaining, Padam padam yad vipadam natesham. There is danger at every step for everyone. It's a reality. How many people have you spoken to where they're in a very distressful condition and they say, I never thought that this could happen to me? But it does. Not only does, but it will. It's just inevitable. But understanding this reality is not meant to make us distressed or depressed. It's meant to help us to take shelter of the most optimistic of all ideas. That in every situation, Krishna is there to give us shelter if we turn to him with a sincere heart. And as Kunti said, if we take shelter of Krishna, we reach a state of reality that is beyond death. The eternal soul. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after he took sannyas, he decided to go to Vrindavan. There's something very interesting in this Leela that we find in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. On his way to Vrindavan, he was chanting the prayer of the Avanti Brahman. This is a prayer that Krishna personally spoke in his teachings to Uddhava in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The Avanti Brahman, he suffered in such a way that it was unbearable. In brief, he made mistakes in his life, and all those mistakes just came right back at him. He was quite wealthy, he was quite powerful, he was quite influential, but circumstances completely beyond his control took away everything. All of his friends and his family turned against him and rejected him. All of his property, all of his wealth was stolen away from him. He literally had nothing. He had no one. Everything and everyone in his life was lost. And not in just in a sad way. It's one thing when somebody dies and we're sad. It's another thing when somebody we love turns against you and hates you and acts against you. That's how he lost everything. And he knew he could never get it back. His mind was suffering so deeply. But then he chanted this prayer. Etam shashtaya paratmanishtam. A beautiful prayer where, following in the footsteps of the great souls, let me take shelter of Mukunda, of the beautiful Lord whose face is like the Kunda flower, whose smile is supremely all-attractive, who is the giver of liberation. The Avanti Brahman, in the most painful, hopeless predicament that anybody could be, he took shelter of Krishna and became the happiest man in the world. Why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on his way to Vrindavan is chanting that prayer. Not only is he chanting that prayer, but he's giving this as a sannyas mantra to all those who take to the renounced order in his parampara. Prahlad Maharaj, his prayers, his life, his example is in the context of such difficulty. Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, these tyrants, what they did in society. We read in Srimad Bhagavatam that they had all the goshalas burned down. They had all the ashrams burned and destroyed. They outlawed any Brahmin to perform any yajna for God. They literally outlawed all spiritual practice in order for Hiranyakashipu to have total control over everyone. And no one could stand before him, not even the demigods. What a hopeless situation. Could you imagine being a devotee at that time? You're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to chant. It's against the law. And he was much more powerful than any of the governments today. And he had his spies and he had his soldiers everywhere. People were living in terror. Good people were living in total fear. He actually was trying to reverse. So you get good results if you do sinful activities and you suffer if you do something pious. He actually had the power to create that situation temporarily. That was his goal. And there was little Prahlad. And he was living in Hiranyakashipu's house. Could you imagine? The Brahmins who were living in the forest could not do their yajnas. They were living in fear and they were tormented by lockdown, we could say. But little Prahlad was living right in the same room as his father, seeing him every day under his father's own eyes. And all the various methods in which Hiranyakashipu tried to intimidate him, torture him, and kill him. Prahlad never said, "Why is this happening to me?" Prahlad just took shelter of Krishna. Mahajano yena gatasapanta. He is one of the Mahajans. Of the 12 Mahajans, Prahlad is one of the people we are meant to emulate, that spirit in whatever situation. Smaranam, he remembered Krishna. He took shelter of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, he gave so many classes on the teachings and the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj. Why? Because it is so important to you and to me, to us at this time. It's not that we think that this happened to Prahlad so long ago. It's a theoretical idea. It's interesting. Let me learn it, and maybe I can repeat the story and make people happy. It's for us to actually understand this is a real living scripture that's meant for us to essentially assimilate today. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his coming to this world is so important for us to understand how he orchestrated everything. Prahlad incarnated as Haridas Thakur. That same spirit, Prahlad was praying for the well-being of everyone. When Narasimha Dev offered Prahlad any benediction, Prahlad only asked, "Let me always remember you. Please forgive my father. Give him liberation. And let me remain in this world to preach your glories, to be an instrument of your compassion as long as anyone is suffering due to forgetfulness of you." He always remembered Krishna. That was his personal sadhana. And he was so fearless and compassionate in feeling for the sufferings of others and helping to give them Krishna consciousness. In the house of Srivas, in Navadvip, Srivas Thakur, his brothers, Sri Ram, Sri Pati, Sri Nidhi, they saw the suffering condition that was happening in this age of Kali Yuga. They saw it around them, and they could perceive through the eyes of the scripture what was going to happen in the future. And what did they do? This is our model. They were united. They would have kirtan together. They would perform their japa together. They would have their Hari Katha, Srimad Bhagavat Katha together. They personally absorbed themselves, and at the same time, they felt such deep compassion for the suffering of others. And they had their kirtan. They were already liberated themselves because they were fully taking shelter. But they were having kirtan in a special way to invite Sri Radharani and Krishna to personally descend into this world, to show mercy to the people who are suffering. And nearby in Shantipur and Fuliagram, Advaitacharya and Haridas Thakur, they did the same. They were crying, they were weeping. Haridas Thakur was chanting his 300,000 names. He was taking shelter, and he was also crying to Krishna to come to this world and show mercy to all the fallen souls. In Advaita Prabhu, he was performing his worship on the banks of the Ganges to a Shalagram Shila, crying, weeping, Lord, please come. This is so much who we are as devotees. Our personal sadhana, our personal character, as we're sincerely taking shelter of the Lord because we need that shelter at every moment. And at the same time, they're teaching us to be activists, not complacent, following in the footsteps of Haridas and Prahlad. We care about the suffering situation of others. We're willing to take risks. We're willing to dedicate ourselves to give Krishna to others. It was in their compassion to all of us in this age of Kali that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to this world. And when Lord Chaitanya actually established the Sankirtan movement for the general public, he orchestrated it in a most instructive way. It was a time of lockdown. It was a time of great distress. Lord Chaitanya already asked everybody to chant the names of Krishna. Whoever you are, it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor, whether you're learned or not learned, whether you're male or female, whether you're from one race or another race or one caste or another caste. These are all material considerations. Take shelter of Krishna, who has descended in his name. With your family, with your friends, tell others about this. Or just by yourself when you're eating or sleeping, just chant Hare Krishna. And as they did it, the Chand Kazi, who was actually an incarnation of Kamsa, he was tormenting all the innocent people. He was beating them, breaking murdangas, plundering their wealth, imprisoning. They were all totally in fear. The Chand Kazi had thousands of soldiers everywhere searching for anyone who was breaking the law by practicing bhakti. It was in that situation, Lord Chaitanya, they all came to him. All these people, they came to him and they took shelter. We're trying to follow your instructions, but it's so difficult. It's impossible. How can we do it? And Lord Chaitanya, at that time, when they cried out for his mercy in that helpless, hopeless spirit, and they took shelter, Mahaprabhu said, I will lead you in the Sankirtan. And he personally led the Sankirtan party to the house of Chand Kazi. It was the first public Sankirtan performance in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela. It was a response to a very difficult lockdown, dangerous time of much suffering and helplessness. Gajendra was having a nice, comfortable life, but he attained the supreme happiness of bhakti, prema, because he took shelter. And it was a helpless situation that provoked it. Haridas Thakur, he's our namacharya. He is teaching us by his example how to take shelter of the holy names. His whole life was filled with difficulties. We just get a little glimpse of it from Vrindavan Das Thakur and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswamiji. When he was living in Benapole, that Ramchandra Khan tried to destroy him. He wanted him defamed, tortured, imprisoned, killed. But Haridas Thakur, even in that situation, he saw the opportunity to give someone Krishna conscious, the very person who was trying to destroy him, that prostitute. And then he left there. He went to Chandpur. Chandpur is part of Saptagram. It's actually still there today, these places between Calcutta and Mayapur Dham. Chandpur is where Balaramacharya, the guru of the father and uncle of Raghunath Das Goswami, were living. And when Haridas came there, Balaramacharya, he was so happy, he was so honored, he was so grateful. Here is Balaramacharya, most learned scholar, the guru and priest of the wealthiest, most powerful people of that province, a Brahman by birth. And he surrendered with such gratitude to Haridas Thakur. Haridas was from an untouchable caste by mundane considerations. He had absolutely no material wealth. He was homeless. He just wore a loincloth. Balaramacharya arranged a nice place for him, gave him prasad every day at his house. And every day Hiranya and Govardhan would invite scholars and Brahmins and respectable gentlemen to come to his house to discuss the scriptures. And one day, they invited Haridas Thakur to come. Balaramacharya brought him. When Haridas Thakur came into that assembly, Hiranya and Govardhan, who were like the kings of that area, they stood up. They offered their pranams. In front of everybody, they went to Haridas and offered their dandavat pranams. They put their head on the feet of Haridas and emotionally prayed for his mercy. Such an example. And then people began to describe the glories of Haridas Thakur. And one said that he chants at least 300,000 times the names of Krishna every day. And then they began to discuss the glories of the holy names. One great scholar said, and he quoted from scripture, that simply chanting the names of Hari, one can vanquish all the reactions of all sinful activities. And another person quoted from scripture, simply by chanting the names of Krishna, one can achieve mukti, liberation. As they were discussing this, they were thrilled with the glories of the holy name. And Haridas, with all humility and respect and total conviction, he intervened. He said, vanquishing sinful activities and liberation is not the real goal of chanting the holy names of Krishna. These are subordinate byproducts of the chanting of Krishna's names. The real goal of chanting Hare Krishna is to love Krishna. The awakening of love for Krishna within our hearts. And he gave the example of when the sun is rising, even before the sun appears in the horizon, there's light and it dispels all darkness. And then the sun appears. Similarly, simply by a glimmer of a glimpse of the chanting of Krishna's names, one can attain liberation and the vanquishing of all sinful reactions. But when Krishna actually appears in his name, the light of ecstatic love for Krishna awakens from our hearts. At this point, a particular person who was in this assembly became outraged. His name was Gopal Chakravarti. He was very learned, extremely wealthy, and very influential. He was the chief tax collector under Hiranya and Govardhan. And basically, Hiranya and Govardhan, their wealth was because they were, on behalf of the king, getting the taxes. And here is their chief collector, Gopal Chakravarti. He was a Brahmin too. He could not tolerate what was being spoken. He screamed out in anger at Haridas Thakur. You are misleading everyone. Look at this low-class person. Look at this sentimental devotee. There are people who perform tapasya, who do puja, who dedicate their entire life to studying scripture. And after thousands of such lifetimes, they cannot achieve mukti or liberation. That is how precious, how glorious is mukti. And this emotional low-class devotee is telling us that just a glimmer of a glimpse of chanting the names of Krishna, one can attain liberation, and it's not even the ultimate goal. Haridas Thakur heard him and said, I'm just repeating from scripture. This is what the scripture tells us. And Haridas Thakur cited Shastras about the glories of the holy name. And how Haridas Thakur gave this example from scripture that one who tastes the sweetness from the limitless ocean of the ecstasy of love for Krishna, the amount of happiness of impersonal liberation is like the water in a hoofprint of a calf. Now, it's interesting that it's not that he said there's no happiness in liberation. Water is there, but comparatively, one can only understand what is mukti in relationship to love of God when one achieves love of God. When Haridas said this, Gopal Chakravarti was so outraged. He cursed Haridas. He said, if one if mukti is not an insignificant byproduct of love for Krishna and chanting his names, then I will cut your nose off. The whole audience was aghast. They were shocked. Govardhan and Hiranya, they considered it the greatest honor of their life to welcome Haridas Thakur. And now in their very own personal house, he's being not only offended, he's being assaulted and cursed. But Haridas Thakur, he was not at all disturbed. He said, actually, if one cannot achieve love for Krishna, and if liberation is not a glimpse of a glimmer of that love for Krishna by chanting Krishna's names, I will cut off my own nose. At that point, Govardhan and Hiranya, they very, very severely chastised Gopal Chakravarti. They took away his salary, they fired him from his government service, and they banished him. You are never allowed to come back to this place. And everyone was so disturbed. And now listen carefully to this wonderful part of the story. Haridas Thakur, he smiled. He said to everyone, please do not be disturbed. I'm not unhappy. It's not your fault. It's not even the fault of Gopal Chakravarti. Don't even blame him. Because after all, he's a scholar without bhakti. Without the mercy of Krishna, no one can understand and really appreciate what love of Krishna is. No one can understand and appreciate the glories of the holy name. Because he hasn't received Krishna's mercy, there's no way he can understand. So why should we hold him fault? Why should we blame him? Everyone just go to your home and be happy. 3 days later, Gopal Chakravarti got leprosy. And in that state, his beautiful nose got cut off by Krishna in the form of material nature. And it's described, he was such a handsome person. His hands, his fingers were beautiful like the buds of a champak flower. They fell off. Haridas Thakur, he felt so much deep compassion and sadness for the state of Gopal Chakravarti. It was from there that Haridas Thakur went to Shantipur and met with Advaitacharya. And Advaita arranged a nice cave for him on the bank of the Ganga in Fuliagram, close by. And then we hear how Haridas, not only was he chanting 300,000 names a day, but he was a preacher, he was an activist. He would go out and preach the glories of the name. He couldn't keep it to himself because that's the spirit of Lord Chaitanya's movement, is to help Mahaprabhu to distribute the few fruits of love of God. At a certain point, some of the Brahmins, Smartas, the Qazis, they arranged the king to arrest Haridas. And he was told, just keep to yourself and we won't bother you, but don't preach. And Haridas said, because I love Krishna, I love all these living beings, I have to do this. But we see Haridas Thakur, the way he preached, he did it with such integrity and such respect for all beings. Amani, Trinadapi Sunichena, Tarori Vasihishnana, Amani Namanadena, Kirtaniya Sadari. His humility, his forgiveness, his tolerance, his respect and honor for others, his not being concerned with respect for himself. He was the living example of Lord Chaitanya's principle instruction. You can cut my body into thousands of pieces and said every piece will be showing compassion to others by spreading the holy name. So they condemned him to torture and death. They beat him in 22 marketplaces. And all the while he was just chanting Hare Krishna and forgiving others. And when it was all complete, Haridas Thakur he just got up again and went to give Krishna to others. And then he went to Shantipur along with the Dwaita to pray, Krishna, please save these people. And Lord Chaitanya appeared. And Lord Chaitanya, he took sannyas just to save those people who were offending him. This is such a state of compassion. The teaching that Ishwara Puri gave to Lord Chaitanya at the time of Lord Chaitanya's initiation. Haranama, Haranama, Haranameva Kevalam Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gatiranyata. That in this age of Kali, the way of achieving Krishna's mercy is the chanting of the names of Hari. Kalerdosanide Rajanasti Heko Mahanguna Kirtanadeva Krishnasya Mukta Sangha Parambrajay. In this age of Kali, which is an ocean of faults, there's one benediction. Krishna has descended in his name, and one can attain the perfection of liberation by chanting these names. This is a very serious lesson that we could learn at this particular time. What is Kali Yuga? It's an ocean of faults. Sometimes we become complacent and we don't take really seriously what is this age of Kali. We're expecting it to be something else. Where I am right now, I'm looking out a window. There's a big snowstorm. Everything is completely covered by thick blanket of snow. And there's very strong, freezing, cold wind that's blowing the snow everywhere. That's just 7 feet from what I'm sitting is outside the window where that's all happening. Now it's January, which is winter. And sometimes in the winter, there's nice days. Sometimes it's sunny and sometimes it's pleasant. But we know for sure that it's winter, so the snow is going to come one of these times. So similarly, it's Kali Yuga. It's the winter season of this world. And even though sometimes things are going very nice and life is pleasant, we shouldn't be surprised when suffering and misery and the symptoms of Kali Yuga come into our life and into the world. Sometime in the monsoon season where you're all living in Mumbai, sometimes it doesn't rain, it's nice sunny weather, but other times there's massive storms. And you may like it, you may not like it, but you understand it's part of the season. I'm remembering a beautiful lesson Srila Prabhupada taught us. I happen to be seeing His Holiness Chandramauli Swami Maharaj. My Dandavat pranams to you, wherever in the universe you may be. Hare Krishna. At New Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada, he was giving Srimad Bhagavatam class every morning in the temple of Sri Sri Radha Vrindavan Chandra. This is in 1976. Every morning he was speaking from the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj. He was speaking in the context of all of the dangers and the tortures that Prahlad Maharaj was dealing with, and his incredible realizations, his sadhana, and his compassion. And then in the evening, he would sit outside with a group of devotees and answer questions. And it was so beautiful because it was the summertime and the weather was quite nice and the birds were singing and there was the trees were full of leaves and the grass was growing. It's just very nice. But one day, it was cold and it was rainy and Srila Prabhupada was ill. So I remember coming for that darshan at night when he usually sits outside, and his secretary, who at that time was Pushta Krishna Swami Maharaj, my dear god brother, he came to the door and said, Srila Prabhupada's very ill today and it's very cold, so he's not giving any darshan. So we were understanding and we were feeling so bad that Srila Prabhupada was ill, and we started walking away. And then Pushta Krishna Maharaj came to the door again as he saw us walking away. And he said, Srila Prabhupada feels for all of you so much that he'll give his darshan from inside today. So we were very excited and we came inside. And it was kind of I remember it wasn't a very large room. There was maybe about 20 devotees who were sitting there. And it was kind of dark. And Srila Prabhupada was sitting. And he asked his Sanskrit scholar, devotee, Pradyumna Prabhu, one of his closest associates, to read from the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, this was very special to us because at the time, Srila Prabhupada was perhaps, he just was translating the 8th or 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam at that time. And he did not make a translation for 12th canto. He asked Pradyumna Prabhu to bring out his original Srimad Bhagavatam, the Sanskrit, and read it for us. And Pradyumna Prabhu said, Srila Prabhupada will not speak. He just wants me to read from the 12th canto. And Srila Prabhupada had him read the symptoms of what will happen in the age of Kali. And as Pradyumna Prabhu was reading Srila Prabhupada, even though he was not in good health at that time, he got so excited. Every symptom that Pradyumna Prabhu would read, Srila Prabhupada would give a commentary on. And his commentary was very much, you see, this is happening now. What the Srimad Bhagavatam is describing about the nature of Kali Yuga is not something theoretical. It's not something just for the future. It's happening now. And it accelerates in the future. One of the symptoms of Kali Yuga is pandemic, disease. The manipulation of religion for hypocritical, mundane reasons, the loss of proper values of marriage life, the loss of proper values for human life, quarrel, hypocrisy, fighting, drought, pestilence, disease. Srila Prabhupada wanted us to take very seriously. It is Kali Yuga. Do not expect things to be so nice. In fact, after studying the Srimad Bhagavatam and hearing from Srila Prabhupada on that day, I was really surprised. It doesn't seem so bad. It should be much worse. It's Kali Yuga. Kaler dosa nide rajan. It's an ocean of faults. But yet the Bhagavatam tells that the greatest, most compassionate, learned sages, they worship Kali Yuga as the best time in history. Because the Lord, who is so merciful, Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Godatveshe Namaha. In this age of Kali, the most magnanimous, most merciful manifestation of Krishna, Krishna himself, who's giving more mercy than Krishna. How is that possible for Krishna to give more mercy than Krishna? That is Lord Chaitanya. In this age of Kali, it's a time when people who have intelligence, it describes in the 11th canto that people who have good intelligence in this age of Kali will take shelter of the Lord and his associates by performing Sankirtan. Yes, we need shelter. This age of Kali is a time when we should not be complacent. When pandemics and plagues and uncertain death and disaster and all these other things happen in our life, it's just part of the season. Don't be pessimistic, be optimistic. Because we have Krishna. And Krishna's come in the form of his holy names. Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarvak Shaktis. Lord Chaitanya has blessed us to chant Krishna's names in whatever situation we're in. And be happy. And to give that happiness to others. So much the process of bhakti was encapsulated in a simple phrase of Srila Prabhupada. Just accept what I'm giving you through your sadhana and behavior, and share it with others through book distribution, through Harinam Kirtan, through developing communities and projects, various types of projects that will attract people to Krishna consciousness. But Srila Prabhupada taught us that it begins with sharing Krishna consciousness among ourselves as Vaishnavas. I will conclude this class by reflecting on the wonderful teaching that Srila Prabhupada gave us in his pastimes of building the temple for Sri Sri Radha Ras Bihari. His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj has written this wonderful book. I appeal to everyone, please have a copy of this book in your home and read it, study it. Because in the life of Srila Prabhupada, the encapsulation of all the teachings of our previous acharyas and scriptures are revealed to us. When he brought the deities of Sri Sri Radha Ras Bihari to that land, which was a swampy land, and the devotees went there to live with him. They made that little hut for the deities, and Prabhupada promised, I will build you a temple. Devotees were getting malaria. There were giant aggressive rats, snakes, and there were neighbors who were quite violent. And even government officials and the person who was supposed to be selling the land, very powerful people, they all turned against Srila Prabhupada to stop this temple. It would have been so easy for Srila Prabhupada just to say this, let's go somewhere else. And literally everybody was advising him to do that. His lawyers, his friends, even his disciples. But Srila Prabhupada promised Radharani and Krishna. And the amount of threats, the amount of dangers, the amount of anxieties that went on for years. And now Sri Sri Radha Ras Bihari Temple is the most popular temple in all of Mumbai area. It's beautiful. People from all over the world are coming. Such a vision. His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada chose him at the initial stages to lead the project as the president, all the way until it was complete. He was there at every step of all the challenges, hardships, and attacks. And after Srila Prabhupada departed from this world physically, he carried on to the completion of the temple. And I believe that it was Sri Sri Radha Ras Bihari's and Srila Prabhupada's vision that they put His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj, when he was a brahmachari, in charge of that temple to see everything, because they knew he had the loyalty, the faith, the dedication, and the empowerment to write this book. and he has done it. It's a testimony of how a great soul takes shelter of Krishna and feels so much compassion to give shelter to Krishna to others, even in most impossible, difficult situations. Srila Prabhupada, in the beautiful land of Vrindavan, his eternal home, he was translating the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam up to his last breath. And he gave us this simple but powerful instruction. You can show your love for me by how you cooperate with one another. Why do I say it's a powerful instruction? Because Kali Yuga is the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. This pandemic is not only the coronavirus. There's a pandemic of quarrel and hypocrisy everywhere in this world today, that potential. And it's there, even among devotees, if we're off guard, if we lose our focus. So as one of his final instructions, you can show your love for me, and showing our love for Prabhupada is how we show our love for Krishna. With grateful hearts, we accept what will please my Guru Maharaj is more important than all other considerations of my life. And he wants us to cooperate, to spread the glories of Krishna's holy names, the supreme vaccination, the supreme medicine that Lord Chaitanya has brought us. Let us be focused on the sadhana, on the practice of chanting and hearing, and on the sadhya, on the goal of pleasing Srila Prabhupada and Krishna and receiving love for Krishna. And we also must be focused that inseparable from that is how we interact with the sadhakas, with the devotees. In my heart, I'm just envisioning sitting on the rooftop of Sri Sri Radha Bihari Temple and seeing thousands and thousands of wonderful, bright-faced, effulgent, merciful devotees. And we would always end our programs with kirtan. So according to the tradition, Mukunda Madhava Prabhu, we will now have kirtan. But usually before the kirtan, Mukunda Madhava Prabhu would always give an announcement. Would you like to do that?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you very, very much for your inspirational talk on the power of the holy name in the midst of faults and distraction and the pandemic of quarrel and hypocrisy. And you are following the footsteps of Kulashekar Alvar in Mukunda Mala Stotra, which says, Kimaushidam prachasi muda durmate niramayam Krishna rasayanam tiba. Why are you looking for some medicine? Take the medicine of the Krishna rasayanam, the elixir of the holy name of Lord Krishna. That's a supreme medicine. So Maharaj, you have very nicely pointed out, it is not only this medicine, it's a supreme vaccination also. So thank you very much for this wonderful class. And we are really missing your personal association, Maharaj. We are looking forward for your association in person here in Sri Sri Radha Rasbihari Mandir very soon, Maharaj. Thank you very much. And we are also thankful to His Holiness Chandra Maudi Swami Maharaj with us today. And Maharaj, would you Chandramouli Maharaj, would you like to say a few words before Maharaj begins the kirtan?
Hare Krishna. Am I coming through?
Yes, Maharaj, you are.
Wow. I was really inspired and I could say enlivened. My heart was really gained much more hope, faith, and feelings of how the holy name of the Lord is so easily available, yet so compassionate, and yet so powerful, and yet the only focus for devotees who are looking for shelter of Krishna. Lord Chaitanya's supreme mercy, as Radhanath Maharaj made a nice antidote. He said, Krishna is more merciful than Krishna, in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who has made this chanting of the holy name. It's, as Srila Prabhupada used to say, Lord Chaitanya is so mercy, even if you don't want it, he'll find some way to give it to you. So when we want it, it becomes available. And when we really want it, then we can find, as Maharaj so nicely showed through so many examples of great souls, Srila Haridas Thakur, Mother Kunti, Prahlad Maharaj, and others, that no matter what the situation is, no matter how bad it appears to be from our particular angle of vision and what actually is happening around us, we have complete shelter, we have complete hope, we have faith, and we have everything we need if we just, as Maharaj said, sincerely and with all our heart and soul take shelter of Krishna and chant his holy name and pray for his mercy. And of course, as Maharaj is very much active in distributing that mercy to others in so many ways, he made that point that this is also the most important part of our accepting the holy name, is that we should also take advantage of having the holy name's mercy available to us by giving it in whatever way we can to those who are, let me say, bhagyavan, who are unfortunate, who are not fortunate. So make the fortunate fortunate. And that was the message that His Holiness Maharaj came today, was so powerful, so direct and right to the point. And it's just, after hearing that, there was nothing left. The whole ananta of all, the whole conclusion of all the Shastras were summed up so nicely in Maharaj's explanation of where our heart, mind, and intention should be, and where our activities should actually manifest from that in the form of accepting and in giving the holy name to others. So I feel happy, enlivened, and I must say my faith in the attempt to take shelter of the holy name has increased simply by these last 2 hours of hearing Maharaj. Thank you very much to all the devotees who arranged this, and a special thank you and my most humble obeisances at the lotus feet of Radhanath Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. We are very, very fortunate to have your association also, along with His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj Association. Double benefit we are getting. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Maharaj, you could now start the kirtan, Maharaj. His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale
the devotees.
Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine.
Open that second drawer.
Namo
There's some cartoons.
Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Satharine.
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine
Nirvishesha
Paschatya Satharine.
Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Brinda.
Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda.
Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Brinda.
Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda.
Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Brinda.
Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Radha Ras Bihari, Radha Ras Bihari, Radhe. Jai Radha Gopinath, Radha Gopinath, Radhe.
Gopinath, Radha, Gopinath, Radhe.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Haribo. Gaur Premanande.
Hari 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 Bo.
Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you very much.
We thank all the devotees who have participated in today's special lecture. Especially, I would like to thank His Holiness Chandramouli Swami Maharaj to have joined us and gave his association. And once again, we thank from our heart His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj to have continued the legacy of giving his association on 26th January here, though we are separated by distance and time also. And we are very, very happy, and I am sure devotees are very inspired by your wonderful class, Maharaj. Thank you very much, and we are very much looking forward for your association in person at Sri Sri Radha Rasdihari Mandir very soon. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Maharaj. We'll close the session, Maharaj.
Please.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. So we are closing the session for today. Hare Krishna.